Good morning, Saturday morning, getting back to zero. It's a beautiful day here in Cincinnati. We have some festivals to go to, and then and for those of you that don't care about football, too bad because I do. But my Bearcats play Notre Dame this afternoon, so uh, we're going to talk sobriety this morning, and then we're going to talk about Bearcats all afternoon. So it's going to be a fun day. Have a guest that I have been told you got to get her on. You got to get her on. You got to get Bindi. Get Bindi. You'll love Bindi. Bindi's the best. Da da da. And I have known Bindi when through TLC and also a little bit of the group that she's a big part of, Pandemic Sober Squad, which we're going to talk about. But Bindi has always made me laugh. But I have never heard her story, and everyone says it's a really good one. So I begged and pleaded, and I think I had to offer her some cash. I believe that it was something. I don't remember what all the agreement, the papers I signed, but the print got very small at the bottom, so I'm not sure what I'm indebted to. But Bindi, welcome to Getting Back to Zero. I'm so glad you're here.
Hi, I'm glad I'm here. It's gonna be fun.
I know that I believe you're West Coast, and anytime someone is willing, they talk about sobriety takes work. This
Yeah.
is not, it's just not a switch you turn off or on. It takes work. You're up. You look like you've been up, and it's 5 o'clock your time.
Well, I'm on East Coast.
Okay.
Yeah, so I'm on East Coast. And I am trying to be an early riser.
Show prep is so important. You got to know who you're talking to. And when you don't even know where the hell they are in the state, that's impressive. People are going, hey, Jeff's on the ball.
Well, I think that's the beauty of what we've all been doing for the last year and a half is that we actually, all of us who have been doing all this online sobriety stuff, have friends from all over the country now. And we, what are time zones? Like what, so I don't expect you to remember, but yeah.
No, it's true. I talking last night with family about, they said, are you meeting some new friends? I said, I've got someone from Ireland that I've become, on the social, this platform, people could be a block away or they could be on the other side of the planet. It doesn't matter.
Yep. Yeah. It's cool.
Well, I'm so glad you joined us. Yeah. We're going to, before we solve all of the world's problems and before you give all the answers, I know you're a major player with a Pandemic Sober Squad, which we're going to talk about. Fantastic group, support group. But what got you here into the rooms? What's Bindi's story?
Yeah. So my sobriety date is March 8th, 2018. So I've been sober for 3.5 years. And the way I get sober, I did, I'm a 12-step person. I got sober originally in the rooms of 12-step meetings. And that worked. I, still love my 12-step groups. And when the pandemic started, a lot of my 12-step meetings went to virtual, but it really wasn't the same. Because we were so used to being in a room together. There was only 15 or 16 of us. So if a few people can't join, now you've got a meeting with, just a handful of people. It doesn't work the same. And so I joined TLC. So I had followed Laura McCowan's writing for a couple of years, joined TLC. And that really, got me through, I think, my sobriety during the pandemic. I joined Pandemic Sober Squad, which we can talk about. And I think I met you there through TLC. And so, so that's kind of how we connected.
How did you end up in a sobriety support group yourself?
Yeah. So you mean like online or just
so you woke up, you were laying in the gutter and you said to yourself,
yeah, perfect. That's a perfect way to say it. That's a perfect way to say it.
Sad for some of us, but yeah.
Yeah. So I eventually got sober. My story, I think, is typical to a lot of people, that I always say I finally stopped drinking when I was sick and tired of just being sick and tired all the time. I cannot point to one external consequence that was like, this is my rock bottom. But I can point to a series of external things that had been happening over time. And I'll be honest, you know, my drinking finally ended the day that at the time, my husband, we're not together anymore, but at the time my husband kind of said, you know, the jig is up. I had at that point been drinking sort of what I thought was secretly for years. And I had been internally sort of praying for a way out. You know, I had crossed, and we can talk about like the whole story and the drunkalogs and everything else, but I had basically crossed every line I had ever created for myself. I was way past any sense of denial about my drinking. I was, you know, I was way past the Googling, am I an alcoholic? At that point, I was drinking in the mornings. I was drinking all day long, but I just couldn't see a way out. I knew I had to stop drinking, but I could not see a way out of it. You know, I would fantasize about like, oh, maybe I'll get in a car accident and then I will be in the hospital and I'll get sober there.
That's crazy, but it's so true.
Yeah.
You know, that is amazing. I think if I got something where I was laid up at the house, I thought the same thing, where I couldn't go to the store.
Yep. And I would, so I would feel like, you know, when is this going to end? So, I mean, my last 6 months was really, really dark, really lonely, really dark. And then one day, you know, at the time, my husband said, you know, hey, like, look, I found these bottles. I've been noticing for a while, like the jig is up. You know, you need to stop this and I will be there for you through it. And that was very, you know, fortunate. He went with me to my first AA. I mean, we went to an AA meeting together, and we went to this like random, the meeting we went to was not a meeting of my peers. I mean, it was like in this like side of town that was very scary. We didn't know. I mean, why would your husband go with you to an AA meeting? But we didn't know. We just like Googled it. And he went with me. And that was sort of the beginning. That wasn't the day, you know, the day we walked into our first meeting is not my sobriety date. There was months of sort of back and forth, but that was really when I started seeing a way out.
Bindi, do you remember when you started going there? So you were probably in the, I want to quit, but I don't want to quit. Do you remember what the transition was? So let's just say 2 months later, that because you're telling my story right now. When my wife said the gig is up, I remember being defenseless. I had no fight left. I had no more excuses. And I was drinking in the morning. Everything you're saying is just, wow. But what from the time you started that first AA with your husband until you were ready, what changed?
Yeah, I remember exactly. I remember exactly what changed. So I went to my first meeting in September. And then, you know, I kept drinking. I was one of those people who would go to meetings and drink. I remember I went to my first meeting. I remember going to my second meeting. I remember 6 or 7 days sober and being like, I got this. You know, this is pretty easy. Like, you know, and on the 7th day, I literally went to a meeting and then went out drinking with my friends for brunch.
I don't think you're alone.
Yeah. And that went on. I went to an outpatient program. It was for like young professionals, or I'm not young, but it was for professionals. And I stayed sober for 90 days through that. And that was very great because I no longer felt physically in any way addicted to alcohol. But I drank after that. I still drink after that program. The day it changed for me, Jeff, was I remember specifically having the little mini bottles of wine in my house, in my room, because I had started drinking again after that 90-day thing. It was like 6 or 7 days I drank after that 90-day outpatient program. And I remember one day picking up one of those bottles and being like, I can drink this, but then what? Like, then what?
Then what is huge. I love that.
Yeah, it wasn't work. You know what, Jeff? It wasn't working anymore. It wasn't there was no amount of alcohol that I could pour on the guilt, the shame, the heartache. It wasn't getting me to a place where I could escape from any of those feelings anymore. And I remember drinking that and being like, what am I going to do after this? Because I'm still going to feel the same way as I feel now, and I'm actually going to feel worse. Mm-hmm. So I put it down. I remember it wasn't like I woke up in the morning and called it my day one. I put it down at like 3 p.m. and was just like, what if I just don't drink it today? Like, what if I just don't? Even though I drank until 3 p.m, doesn't mean I have to keep going. And then the next day, I started really throwing myself into all of the sobriety resources that are out there that are not 12-step related. And this is not about 12-step. I love 12-step. I still go to my 12-step meetings. But what I realized I really needed was I needed to be handheld through the process by people who I felt like sounded like me. The first thing that I found was the Home podcast. And when I started listening to the Home podcast, if you haven't listened to it, it's old now. It's about 3 years old. Laura McCowan and Holly Whitaker started it, and they are just like chatting. They're at the time they were just friends who would chat with each other. And Laura McCowan was, I think, a few months sober. And what really changed was they were talking about their sobriety like it was a lifestyle choice, not like this terrible consequences of their actions. And I had never heard sobriety talked about that way.
Green light versus red light.
Yeah. Yes. I had never heard sobriety talked about like, hey, I'm really proud of myself. I woke up this morning, I went to the gym. Hey, you know what, Jeff, I'm really working on this thing where I'm drinking a lot of water. So, I actually have this like, whatever, all the tricks that we do to like stay healthy, right? And we chat about it and we are proud of ourselves that I might not go to the gym tomorrow, but I went today. Isn't that great? And I had never heard sobriety talked about that. Like, I don't know what's going to happen tomorrow, but hey, you know what? I'm not drinking today and it felt pretty good. Maybe I'll try it again tomorrow. I had always heard sobriety talked about like, you got your drinking card taken away and that's okay. It's going to be fine. People still love you. Here's what the rest of your life is going to look like. And it's great, but at least you won't be dead.
But Bindi, this is such a critical point for people that are in that debate of to do this or not, because I saw it as a death sentence.
Yep.
I had to get sober, but that just meant the end of everything. My life was not going to be the same. And I looked at that as a negative thing. Now I look at it, my life isn't going to be the same. Hell yes, I'm freaking free of that crap. But I didn't see it as freedom. I saw it. And so the picture that we see sobriety is too bad. I'm sorry. It's not congratulations. Maybe the people that are sober say it, but someone that's not, I'm getting sober. Oh, wow. It's too bad.
Yeah.
Sorry to hear that.
Yeah. And what always occurs to me, especially being a woman, and I don't know if men do this as much, maybe they do, but like, especially, we talk all day long about what we ate, right? Like we talk all day long about, hey, like I kind of want this cupcake, but I'm kind of doing this like no sugar thing. And it was like, oh, that's great. How are you feeling? Well, I feel like shit because I haven't had sugar in 3 days, but on day 4, I'm going to feel pretty good. And I've tried this before, it didn't really stick or whatever. We talk about these health choices. Hey, I think I might, get off of gluten because I think maybe it's like doing something weird to my skin, whatever. And there's no shame in, hey, I kind of like to sit on my couch and eat cupcakes, but I'm gonna try not to today.
Yeah.
But we don't talk about drinking like that. We don't talk about drink. Like no one ever says, or I have never heard. So I'll put it this way: I had never heard people like me say, I'm kind of worried about my drinking. I think I need a break. I think it's really doing some stuff to me. And here are the things I'm going to try. I'm going to listen to this podcast. I'm going to read this book. It's just this very shameful thing. And I think that for me, especially, that kept me stuck for a very long time. When I was past the point of enjoying drinking, I didn't know where to turn for resources because I had never heard anyone in my workplace, in my social circles, I had never heard anyone talk about, even to say, Ooh, I think my drinking is kind of making me double think myself. It always been like, oh yeah, I mean champagne, wine, get when we had a little more money, get the nice whiskey or for me, I think that was a big mental shift. Was not being I had spent so long being ashamed of my drinking. For me, really, the mental shift came when I was like, you know what? I'm not going to be ashamed about not drinking now. I was ashamed about my drinking. Now I have to be ashamed about not drinking.
Right.
Fuck that. Oh, I don't know if we cuss here,
No,
but
you're good. I don't. No,
that.
we're curse away.
Okay. So that was, feeling like this is something I can take pride in, just like I take pride in other things I'm doing to better myself, really for me changed how I approached it. And then as time went on, I was able to look into the shame and I was able to address that and look at that head on and talk about it. But initially it was like, I can't do that right now. I can't think about my shame. I have to just wake up and feel good about myself.
I hold the thought on shame because that's mass. I've got to ask you about that, but I'm going to play the new person into sobriety. I have these steps, and you're talking about TLC, Pandemic Sober Squad, these groups. But you said that when you started reaching out and grabbing hands to walk me through this, we have a meeting, and then everyone says we can do it, we'll do it, we got this, and then we hang up, and I'm sitting alone on a Friday night. Now it's 5:00. I just got off my TLC where everyone said we got this, we're together, we're a team, click, end meeting, and now I'm sitting by myself. And that I struggled with that because it was like, well, wait, we talked about we can do this together. Well, now you're gone and I'm sitting alone again. And that's where I really had a tough time.
Yeah.
Because now when we were on the meeting, if we had a 24-hour meeting, I that'd be great. But I'm now sitting by myself on the couch with a remote control, bored, lousy day at work. And those are tough moments.
Yeah. Yep. And I hats off to everyone who got sober during a particularly early pandemic when we didn't even know whether it was safe to like look at our neighbor across the street, and say hi and wave. Hats off to those of you all who have gotten sober through that, because I think sobriety, I think getting sober is a lonely time regardless. And I didn't have to do it during a pandemic. I got sober before the pandemic when I spent a lot of time in meetings. I spent a lot of time after meetings, before meetings. And I worry, it's funny that you mentioned that because I got that exact same thought, of there's people on this meeting that really poured their hearts out and we get off the phone. I'm kind of worried about them. Like I have, I've been sober for a few years. So I have in my phone, 2 or 3 group chats of sober people, sober women that I chat with throughout the day. I have friends that I can call that will pick up the phone, even if they haven't heard from me in 6 months. They see that I'm from their AA group, they're going to pick up the phone because what if something's wrong? What if Bindi is having some sort of mental emergency? And I really rely on that. I've never had that before. I've had a lot of friends. I've had social circles, but I've never had people who I feel like I could rely on from an emotional standpoint. I think the key though is even with that, it's lonely, right? Like even with having people that I can call, it can be lonely because what you are going through is such an inside job, as you say. Like no one has had your exact experience. And I think the biggest thing for me has been recognizing this is actually how it's supposed to feel. Like first of all, loneliness is supposed to feel terrible, right? Like we're not really meant to be. I firmly believe we are not meant to be alone. Humans are pack creatures. And so number one, I think what really helped me is like when loneliness feels bad, like it's actually supposed to feel bad. I'm not doing anything wrong. I just need to sit in this and what is coming up for me and how do I kind of process that stuff to get to the other side, but not like try to solve that problem of feeling lonely. I think that was the other thing, like for me for the pandemic, was that was probably the first time in sobriety that I actually had to sit with myself. Because before I would go to meetings, I would talk to people, during the pandemic, I think that was the first time where I was like, I think I just have to sit here and be lonely. Like, I think I just have to like deal with it. I think I just have to suck it up. And, I think it's very different when you're in an emergency situation where you feel like you're going to drink. That's not what I'm talking about. Sitting there and try to white knuckle it. That's not what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about is when you're feeling like, I don't really want to think about these feelings. And used to be, well, I'll just go out on a date with someone random, or I'll just go, I don't know, whatever people do. And it was like, during the pandemic, I think I just have to sit here and feel lonely. I think I just have to sit here and feel, think about my impending divorce, and yeah,
It's tough though, because there's two things. You're giving up alcohol was difficult for me because I didn't have something I enjoy. Well, I didn't enjoy it at the end, but that it's what I did. But now I take that away, and suddenly I also have all these feelings. And now the shame of what I did, I'm not drinking tonight, but the shame of what I did yesterday, the shame of where I'm sitting, the shame that I'm, all that stuff. Now I don't even have the ability to numb it away. I now have to cope or sit and acknowledge and stare face to face with these emotions that I was able to drown or bury under alcohol, which is like a double-edged sword, because I'm taking away alcohol and now I've got to face the things in full force without the thing that, alone time on the couch is hard.
Yeah. And I think that's why those of us who have gone through this and are sober, not because we used to drink, well, any of us who are sober, I think that's why we give each other so much props. Like, that's why I call us badass, because there's a lot of people out there who have never done what we're doing in terms of really looking at the shit that we've done. Because here's the other thing. We're all of us who stopped drinking, we're not the only ones who've done all that terrible shit. We're the only ones who really are looking at it, or we're, in some ways, there's a lot of people who aren't even looking at it. And so I give myself, I give myself a lot of grace for at least getting through that period, regardless of how I got through that, because I have started to understand and realize, oh my gosh, I'm not the only one who has done stuff that I've regretted. There are people who are not even sober yet, or aren't even looking at their drinking, that don't even think they have a drinking problem, who've done the same things that I've done. And I don't mean that as in judgment, like, oh, they're so terrible, I'm not. I mean it as in, oh, I can be proud of this. This is actually an accomplishment. I can recognize getting through that evening on the couch with my remote control. I can look at that actually as an accomplishment, because it is, because so many people don't even get that far. And I think that's why early sobriety is so hard, because there's no accomplishments to start like, it's the building of the momentum that really helped me. Once I had a few accomplishments under my belt, then I feel like the momentum started building. And I think that's why the first like 30 days, 60 days is so hard, because you really have to just trust everyone who is telling you, I promise it gets better. Like, your last 4 hours you spent on the couch really sucked, but like, it gets better. Every Friday night is not going to feel like that. It might look like that on the outside, but every Friday night's not going to feel like that. Just, stick with us, stick around.
I think the group chat thing, and it's kind of just dawning on me right now, because you always talk about having numbers in well, I've got my friend, but that person, but they might be busy, they whatever. But the group chat, there's always someone sitting there, and I love that. And just to be able to say, all right, I feel like crap. I'm, the the wine witch or whatever they call it
Yep.
is just banging on the door right now, you're going to get responses in those groups. And even to hear, yeah, me too, let's do this together. That just those words,
Yep.
oh God, me too. I'm over here in, California. Hey, check back with me in 10 minutes. I'll give you an update. You give me yours. Just knowing someone else is going through it is huge. One, you bring up such great points, and this is what kills me about only having an hour with you. But when I see, and I'm still the new person, I see you in sobriety, happy and being proud of yourself. I'm on the couch right now, and all I see in the mirror is a piece of shit, excuse my French, that has been a lousy parent, been a lousy partner, been lousy at work, going, I don't even deserve to be happy. And what do I even have to be? You know what I'm saying? It's that self-shame, I guess. Or I didn't even feel I wanted to forgive myself because I didn't feel I deserved it. I felt, okay, now you're miserable being sober. You need to sit in this penance and pay for your sins now. I didn't even feel I deserved to be happy.
Yeah. And so this is where I'm going to try to not get too much into this, because I don't know what all your audience may connect with, but I will tell you that what that brings up for me is it is so wrong. But what
Wait, you cut out for a second. It's so what?
It's just so wrong. Those feelings of feeling like I don't even deserve this is so, it brings up so much. But I will tell you that what I really relate to is people, particularly people in sobriety, but not necessarily people in sobriety, who said this to me: "You're already forgiven. You're already forgiven, right?" And I hate to be all like, whatever. I don't go to church or anything like that, so I know those are words that are said in certain denominations, and that's not what I'm referring to, because that's not how I wasn't raised in the Christian church. But like, the idea of grace is that we didn't do anything to deserve it. Like, you don't have to deserve grace. You just get it. And that was,
who gives it to us?
yeah, I think that is the big question, right? Like, if you believe in a higher power, then you were born with grace. There is nothing you can do that is ever going to take that away from you. Right? So that is very woo-woo, but let me provide a different way that it showed up in my life that wasn't woo-woo. The way it showed up in my life is people telling me, I forgive you. You can tell me all of that, and I've done it too. There's nothing, hearing people say to me, you can tell me pretty much anything that you've done, and I'm not going to bat an eyelash. Mm-hmm. And saying it out loud and having that actually happen, having it come true, that everyone didn't just run away from me, that, I think, if I had not done that, I don't know how I would have internally processed all of that shame and guilt. Because here's the thing, I don't think I could have forgiven myself. It needed to come from other people. Mm-hmm. It needed to come from an external source, which now I kind of put in this category of like my higher power. But at the time, I wasn't in that mental place. How it showed up for me is people saying, I forgive you. I think you deserve to be sober. I think you deserve to be happy. I love you. And I'm like, oh no, but you haven't heard this thing. Let me tell you this one thing that I did. And I would tell them, and they're like, yeah, I did that. I'm like, really? You did that? And I would look across the table at someone who I respected so much. I loved them. They seemed like they had their life together from an external standpoint, but they seemed like someone I wanted in my life. And they're telling me, I've done that too. And I'm like, you've done that? They're like, Bindi, we were drinking. We were in our addiction. That wasn't you. That was your addiction.
That's a great point.
And that really
cut yourself some slack.
Yeah.
That was not you. I love that. Cut yourself some slack. That wasn't you. You were in your addiction. That is the out that I need to hear,
Yes.
because I can, Bindi, you can tell me whatever you want. I'll say, Bindi, I forgive you. Hey, move on. That was yesterday. The guy in the mirror, I'm saying, you piece of crap, you
Yeah.
loser. I'm not forgiving you. Look at all the things you did. So that's huge, though. It wasn't me. It was my addiction. And that gives me at least opens the
Yeah.
door to forgiveness and goes, you know what? Maybe maybe I do deserve to walk through that.
Yeah. And I'll tell you that there is a level of forgiveness that I have for myself that I I don't think I don't think everyone has that for me. I think there are people in my life that don't forgive me to this day. Right. And there's people in my life that don't even know that I've done all of these. And if they heard it, they probably wouldn't forgive me.
Right.
And I have to be okay with that. Right. So I have to be okay with people who
Excuse
will
me. I'm taking
never.
notes as you're
Yeah.
spewing
Yeah.
out just gold.
Like I have to be okay with people in my life that will never forgive some of the things that I've done because their forgiveness is not guaranteed. And I am not here to gain it. I am here to live my best life, to move forward. I am here to look at myself in the mirror. And that's really it. If I can look at myself in the mirror, if other people can forgive me, that's just icing on the cake. But I think that there is a level of grace that I give myself that even to me sometimes feels like too much, right? Like even to me sometimes I'm like, really? Well, do you really deserve grace for like what you did yesterday, which is watch Netflix for 7 hours? Well, I guess I did. I mean, I guess I needed that,
Yeah.
But I don't think, especially the drinking, I joke around about watching Netflix for 7 hours, but especially like the drinking stuff, the putting my children in danger stuff, there's people who are never going to forgive me about that. And that's okay. That's okay. That's part of the journey. And I think that's part of the battle scars. I think that's part of life. I think that's life. That's, I don't think any of us get to the end without some battle scars. And my battle scars look like there's things that I will do that people will never understand. How could Bindi have done that? How could you?
And the thing that's hard to understand is I'm better because of the screw ups I did.
Right.
And to it's how to say it without it sounding wrong, but if I hadn't screwed up so bad, I probably would not be here doing so well today.
100%.
And I'm not saying, hey, go out and just piss everyone off and wreck your life and drive your friends' kids around while you're drinking and all that stuff, because you'll feel great tomorrow.
Right.
No, that's not. But looking back, I can either what I was, use it as a negative to take me down, or I can understand it. I can create something out of it.
I love that. I love that, creating something out of it, because I think that especially when the pandemic hit, I think that's when my sobriety probably was the most fragile. I was also going through a separation at the time, living in a house with someone, trying to work while my kids were home. And that's when I really, building something out of this, of not drinking, really became critical for me. And it wasn't like I built, a business or anything like that, but even just, that's when I did a lot more of this. Actually, I did some more talks and meet and chats and podcasts and things like that, because I had to feel like, okay, there's something good that came out of that last year and a half of sobriety, so that I could kind of keep the momentum moving forward. Yeah.
There's a lot of you said inside job, and that's I'm the one that I've always wanted everyone else to do it for me.
Yeah.
And I came into AA so they could tell me, what one step I had to do, one thing to have alcohol completely just disappear from my life. I bought the Peloton, so it will get me in shape. I bought all the ingredients for that delicious meal, and they're sitting on the counter not doing anything. And it's sobriety is the same thing. It's when I hear that this program or that program didn't work for me, and you just want to say it didn't work for you, or you didn't work for it. I don't, there's the inside job. This isn't there's some digging to get out of this.
Yeah. And so to kind of devil's advocate on that a little bit, because I 100% agree. And you and I chatted about this the other night. But you know what I was thinking since then, though? I was thinking back to my first 30 or 60 days. If there's people or 90, whatever you want to call early sobriety, if there's people listening who are in that, it goes back to, and I keep bringing up, the author Laura McCowan. I know that's how kind of we know each other, but what she says in one of her books is, and she's quoting somebody else, but she's like, there's only 100% of people who quit drinking do this one thing. Just don't do it. Like, just don't drink. And what I've been thinking about since you and I chatted, all of that inside job stuff, all of the for me, all of the self work, all of the looking at, all the things I did, I will tell you that initially it was about getting through to 9 p.m.
How did you get through, or, that the Friday night, I just got home and the wine witch is knocking on the door. What is Bindi's survival tips for that?
Yeah. I think that the point I'm trying to make is some days in early sobriety really was white knuckling it. And I don't want anyone to get the sense that they are doing something wrong if it feels like that. Sometimes it just feels like that. Sometimes it just feels like all I'm doing around my sobriety today is not drinking.
Well, the first time we work out, we're sore as hell. It's hard.
Yep. I'm not reading any of those books that Jeff mentioned. I'm not listening to any of those podcasts that Bindi mentioned. I'm not even going to TLC meetings because they're not at the right time for me. I might as well give up on all of this. And I just want to say that really, to get sobriety, you just have to not drink first,
Mm-hmm.
And then I think that for me, you will figure out what else you need to layer on that to have a happy life in sobriety, right? So I think for me, it was really important to move from survival to enriching my life. But I had to get through the survival stuff first. I had to get to, okay, Bindi, today you got to water yourself and you got to feed yourself. Like those are your two things you got to accomplish in sobriety today: is eat food and drink water. And then, tomorrow maybe you can pick up that book or whatever. So I want to give people the permission to kick that can down the road a little bit if they really feel like they need to. But then I think when people are ready for that, there are resources out there. And I think that the thing that really helped me was finding things that really sounded like me, felt like me. I really needed to hear stories from other moms. That really helped me because I had never. So I don't know if I mentioned this, Jeff, to you before, but I literally, one of the ways I found a lot of the people I follow now is I literally Googled like moms who drink. I'm a mom and I drink too much. And I was like, surely, nothing will come up in my Google. And there were like all these podcasts all these blogs of like moms who were telling their story of sitting in their garage with their kids in the car passed out in their garage. And like, I don't wish that on anyone, but I'm glad I read that because it's like, oh, and this person is still here to tell her story.
Yeah. And they're smiling.
They're smiling, and people are actually like reading their stuff and like, I want to know more about her. Mm-hmm. And so if she's not a terrible garbage person, maybe I'm not either. Yeah.
It's part of, recovery for, I think, our job of people that even are doing this. And I'm not saying it has no definition based on the tenure, but people need to know that my life was shit. I was drinking first thing in the morning. I was hiding it. My last 6 months, I mean, that was just cracking me up when you were talking about it, because it was like, this is my story. You stole it once again. Someone has stolen my story. But the 6 months were bad, worse than people know. But people need to know to relate, because, look, you're the epitome of what. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm in the wrong room. I'm looking for that room where all the drunks are. That's the AA room. I'm looking for. You combed your hair. I'm sorry, I'm in the wrong place. This is, where are the drunk losers like me? But to know that I'm not the only one that's down there, and then the other, so I need to hear that and realize that I'm among my peers, and then I need to see the smiles and know that you're not sober or alcohol free, but boring and dead in life. That you're actually, oh, I'm sorry, you guys are having fun. I'm looking for the recovery room where everyone's sitting around just going, now what do we do? Now what do we do? I'm bored stiff. No jokes are funny. That's what I was expecting. So seeing all this is huge for us.
Yeah. And I will, can I tell a little bit about what it looked like towards the end, or kind of what it looked like? So, and I'll try not to get into my whole, all of this, because we have like 20 minutes.
No, dirt sells. We all love dirt.
So here's what kind of it looked like for me. I mean, I thought about this a lot and kind of mapped it out in my head, but, so kind of starting from scratch, and I'll go quickly, but, I was raised in North Carolina. I was raised to an immigrant family, hardworking, blue collar family. My parents never had alcohol in the house. They were very conservative. They, didn't believe in sex, drugs, and rock and roll. They didn't believe in all that. They were very conservative. So we grew up no alcohol in the house. I remember very early on, I remember my parents had, a big community of other Indian families in where we lived. And I remember going to these parties. And I just remember feeling like drinking was what fancy people with money did. We didn't drink in my house because we weren't fancy and we didn't have money. But all the fancy people, when we would go to these parties and get all dressed up, they had bars in their house. The women, the moms were drinking wine. Like, oh my God, the mom is drinking wine? Like, that was like, they must be super fancy. And I remember very early on, like really glamorizing alcohol. Went to college, and alcohol became a big part of my life in college, grad school, and I think the thing is, I did pretty well academically, all things considered. I still to this day have this nagging thought of like, what could I have become if I hadn't kind of, but I have to let that go and really think I
that's a hard one. That's a hard one. They say let that go. Don't do the what ifs. But wow.
Yeah. Because I did well academically, but I mean, I was out partying like 3 or 4 nights a week, all through college, all through grad school. And it looked like, the thing is, it looked like other people's drinking. But what I think the key for me is to admit is like, I had self-selected into the groups whose drinking looked like mine. I self-selected into the groups who wanted to go out on Tuesdays and Thursdays and Fridays and Saturdays. And
justification.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And there was external consequences. There were some external consequences, like not doing well, or, being hungover at work in the morning, but nothing really bad. My drinking, and that was all through grad school. I moved to Atlanta. I was a young professional here. And I mean, the young professional scene here, at least in my crowd, was just a grown-up version of what we were doing in college. We just had a little bit more money. And we were going out, buying martinis instead of tequila shots or whatever. But everyone's drinking looked like mine. My drinking really changed when I had kids. That's really when my drinking turned into a coping mechanism. And I think the things that led up to it certainly are part of my story, in that I had spent so long with drinking as a coping mechanism that when I had kids and the social part of drinking came to a screeching halt, I had nothing else. It wasn't like I also had books I read or anything. Like that's all I did was go out and drink with my friends. And so once I had kids and I couldn't do that anymore, that's when my drinking really changed to like, well, I can just open a glass of wine at home. The baby's asleep. And my husband at the time didn't drink like I did. He's a social guy. He's a jock. He's a party guy, but he wasn't a come home from work and drink beer guy. He was like a let's go out on Saturday night and go to a club, but not like being at home. And I remember that being like, well, if he's not going to drink with me, then I don't want him to know that I'm drinking.
Exactly.
And once I started hiding it, or not hiding that I was having a glass of wine, but hiding that I actually drank the whole bottle, it really snowballed from there. Because, I actually think there's probably plenty of people who can have a glass of wine every night, every couple of nights, and probably it's fine. I think I see people out there doing it. I think it's fine. But for me, it snowballed so quick because I was isolated. I was at home, isolated. I could quote unquote drink as much as I wanted because I wasn't driving anywhere. And then by the time I had my second daughter, which she's 5 now, by the time I had my second daughter, what it really looked like was, getting up in the morning and drinking. I had no other skills.
Do you know why though you did? Because, on the outside, family, healthy kids. I mean, I'm assuming but a beautiful family. Looking behind you, it looks like there's a bird that's freezing right now because you stole its wings, whatever that bird is. But no, those wings over your other shoulder. Those are the ones I was talking about that you brought from that one. Yeah.
Oh,
those
yeah.
wings. There's a bird running around going, damn, it's cold right now. But you have every reason to be happy. So why, without getting too specific, why did you need to drink?
Yeah, I think that there was a lot of anxiety in being a new mom that I was completely unprepared for. I did not know it was this is how unprepared I was. I didn't know it was normal to wake up and like look at your baby and hope she's still awake, hope she's still alive. Like I thought that made me like some weirdo. Oh my God, women talk about that all the time. Like, yeah, you gotta make sure baby's still breathing. Like, you go a little cuckoo.
And then you're sorry you woke them up to check that they were breathing because now they're screaming and you want them to go back to bed.
And now, one of the things I really wish I had was like an early mom, like support group where we talked about like, here's all the ways I'm feeling like super cuckoo. Like, is this normal? And everyone be like, oh yeah, no, dude, that's completely normal. Like, no problem. I felt very alone. I felt very isolated when I had my kids. I remember, I remember, sitting in my room and being like, I can't do this. I cannot do this for the rest of my life. The rest of your life, dude, your baby was just born like 2 months ago. This is not what the rest of your life is going to look like. You just got to get through these next few months. And I wish I had someone to tell me, hey, like this part is really hard for some people. And it's okay if it's hard for you. It's okay if you're not feeling that maternal instinct kicked in right away. Just keep the baby alive for another month. And then you're going to feel differently. You're going to be able to sleep 6 hours, 8 hours. How you're feeling right now is not what the rest of your life is going to be. And what, in my mind, what I felt like at 1 month when my baby was 1 month old is like, I can't do this. I can't do it. I was super anxious. I had never dealt with anxiety in my life. That wasn't a thing of mine. So I was super anxious. That was the only thing. Drinking was the only thing that made me feel normal. It made me feel like me again. I think that's what it was. I think I had a little bit of postpartum depression when I look back, and now that I do some reading, I'm like, well, I think that's what I had. Why didn't someone just help me? I think there's a lot, and I could talk about this for hours, but I think there is so much that we as a society do, how we fail our young mothers. This is a country full of resources. we have a lot of resources in this country. How are we leaving these mothers to go home with nothing? Nobody checking on them, right? Like maybe the husband's checking on them, but I'm sure he's doing his best. But how is he supposed to know if he's a young father as well? He's going through his own stuff. So, I think I just felt really alone. I felt really abandoned. And I've got this baby. What am I supposed to do? And I had I don't know how other people do it, because I had all the resources at my fingertips. I had great health insurance. I had a husband who, he and I together had a financial stability. I had a roof over my head. I had plenty to eat. I don't know how people without it do it. So I think, Jeff, I think I spiraled, and I think I was reaching for a coping mechanism. And one of the things that I kind of want to leave everyone with is, to this day, as dark as my drinking got in the end, the daily drinking, the waking up in the morning, taking shots in my closet, I still to this day will say, thank God I had alcohol though, because that's the only coping mechanism I had. What if I didn't have that coping mechanism? What would have happened to me? And so I think that is another way that I have learned to forgive myself. Is it was the only coping mechanism I had. It's all I knew. It's all I knew.
How do you cope now?
Yeah. So
because let me preface this. Okay, Bindi, I'm a new mom. I've got all the stress that you're talking about, and you're saying I can take that alcohol's the wrong coping mechanism. Okay, I still got all this crap I'm dealing with. How the hell do you expect me to process it and deal with it without alcohol?
Yep. Yeah. So I will use the example of, my recent experience, which is going through a divorce, in a pandemic, which is, but that's pretty stressful. There are plenty of people that I talk to that were like, oh yeah, like just go out and drink it away, or hey, you need a glass of wine, and they don't know that I'm sober, so I guess it's fine for them to say that. But the reason that I was able is I have coping mechanisms now. You know what they look like. I take really good care of myself. I mean, I do I pamper myself. I mean, I don't mean like in some fancy way, but like, dude, I brush my teeth. I put on my nice, my lotion. I lay in my bed with my linen spray. Like I spray linen spray on my freaking pillowcase. I do the things for myself that I wish someone had done for me, and that I used to believe that someone else had to do for you. I take myself out. I go for walks. I turn off everything and I go for a 45-minute walk. And if people can't find me, too bad. I treat myself the way that you would treat a child. I say things to myself like, would you feed your kid this? Okay, well, why are you eating this then? Would you let your kid eat meals without sitting down to actually eat a proper meal? You wouldn't let your kid do it? Why are you doing it to yourself?
Right.
So I think my biggest coping.
I treat my truck better than I do my body.
Exactly. And
I mean, I'm looking at the oil that I put in it, the gas I put, whatever. I'm making sure that thing gets what it needs. And then anything else, sir? Yeah, let me get a bag of those Twinkies and the Reese cups to go.
Yeah.
With it, with the it's awful.
And I'm not perfect. I'm not perfect at it. There are days when I really am a garbage person still. I don't drink, but I do a whole bunch of other garbage stuff like eat crap and not work out and drink too much coffee and everything else. Sometimes that's my coping mechanism, but really I think the key is I don't let myself get too empty, where I to like really, really dig myself out of that hole. I don't let myself get too empty. I let people down a lot. I say I can't do stuff because I need to sit on the couch and watch Netflix for 2 hours on a Friday.
It's, I can see myself when you're saying this, and now I believe you. But at the time, I've got a beer in one hand, and Bindi just gave me this book on yoga positions for relaxation. And she's saying, if you can get into this lotus position, I'm looking at this beer and I'm going, no, are you nuts? This is going to work. I know this is a quick fix. And you're telling me sitting cross-legged, I'm going to get the same, the same relief that I got from the case of beer. So it is hard for the new person. There's a maybe we just have to be so desperate that we go, whatever, I give up and I trust you. I'll believe. I got to try something else. Maybe that's the mandatory. But now looking back, and I started yoga a few weeks ago.
Oh.
And I put my head through the wall 3 times a night. The drywaller spends more time in our yoga room than I do, repairing, because I've got, one-legged drunk giraffes have better balance than I do. But I love that I'm doing it, and the stretching and whatever. And it's slow, but I'm getting better.
Yeah.
But those are the things I didn't,
That's cool.
a year and a half ago. Jeff, you're going to be doing yoga, and I'll be saying, well, so I have no life at all coming up. Is that what you're telling me? And now I have a better life than I've had, and I couldn't even tell you how long it's been.
Yeah.
So tell me about Pandemic Sober Squad.
Yeah. So Pandemic Sober Squad is a private Facebook group. I joined it when I was on TLC. I want to say like a few months into the pandemic. So it's a Facebook group that that was started by a friend, a friend of ours, and
J-Bro has been on the show. We had her on.
Okay, I didn't know who
months ago. Yeah, so so a lot of people, but yeah, fantastic. She's a lot of fun.
So J-Bro started it. She started as a book club, and then it's grown from there. We do different activities. We have a sobriety meeting once a week. We have the thing that is so cool about Pandemic Sober Squad that is I was not expecting is everyone on the group, I feel like, has these talents and skills and are bettering themselves in some way, or like someone might be a licensed therapist, or hey, this person just did this big research paper on XYZ child psychology, something, and we share like information with each other. We do, one of the members did a breathing technique class one night. Someone did a 101 on some other, art technique. I feel like it's our own little internal like course catalog as well, like where we will do little things for each other. But it's just, it's social, it's fun. We do a little get together for the holidays. And then more than anything, I think we're just there to support each other. There's a big retreat that's coming up in the spring that some of us are really excited about. And it's gone from being an online group to a lot of people meet in person now. There's different people who have realized, hey, you live, not too far away from me, and have become like really,
And if someone wants to check it out or join, just where do we find it? Or
just go to I think, so I may be wrong. I think the way to that you can join, since it's private, is you would find the group, you would search and find Pandemic Sober Squad, and just request to be a member. And then, if you don't get a reply back, you're welcome to message me on Facebook. And I'm on your BAC2zero group, so that should be easy for people to find me in the BAC2zero.
Yeah, and if anyone needs, you can get a hold of me, and I can pass the information on as well.
Yeah. So. We'd love to have you. I mean, I think that, the group only works because the people on the group are active and they support each other and are vocal in the Facebook group and come to meetings, and we're just there to support each other and be a little bit of a light to people. Bring some humor into the mix, and just, a different way of connecting that.
Bindi, one that, and I'm still, this is, I've got to explore more about this and do a class. And, you know what they say when people look at their watch when you're interviewing them?
No,
how much that hurts their feelings. When
no.
I know. I'm just kidding. I saw you looking down, but going, okay, I told you an hour, loser, and time's up. No, but on one of the classes, it was, I think the number. Here I go, butchering everything. I'm a 7. What's the?
The Enneagram. The
Enneagram. Thank you. And I was gonna, anyways. He was on, and what I love, because for me, I know that my angst, it makes me, I got to have a beer. I got to drink. The kids are driving me crazy. I'm about to blow my top. Work is whatever. My spouse or my partner's being a jerk. everything, I am ready to blow my top. That's energy inside me that I have to get out. And that if I can get it out, even verbally, it helps me to relax and I can calm down. And it takes that, I got to have a drink out of me. The guy that was on that night, he had everyone, and I should have turned my camera off, but he said, everyone stand, and he had everyone just balance, close your eyes, put your head back. And I was all over the place. It looked like one of my yoga classes where they just see me going. And then he said, dance like crazy for about a minute. And everyone was jumping and doing whatever.
Yeah.
And I did it moderately because I look like a dork, whatever I do. But I did it. And then he said, now lean back and relax. And I was completely balanced, steady, just dancing and going crazy for a minute or whatever we did, let all this out. And I was good. And I was like, that's gold for me, because that got out this energy. And if that was only a minute and that had me just more relaxed and balanced, that's something I got to pursue that more. And that's where now I'm learning. And that's why I'm trying yoga, because I know breathing is a massive, I was so crippled with anxiety. That's when I was in my mid-20s, we had just gotten married. We were pregnant. I was telling my folks that I wasn't coming home to California. I was going to stay in Cincinnati, starting my first real job as a kid that was pampered and loved so much, potentially too much, that the real world, I didn't know. I think that Becky had said this on one of the TLCs, but my parents, fantastic, but they prepared the road for me. They didn't prepare me for the road. So then when I was on my own and these potholes are coming at my way, it's like, what the hell is this? I didn't know how to deal with them. So that's when anxiety and panic attacks crushed me. And that was the day that alcohol went from just pleasure to medicinal and pleasure. And then it over time, the pleasure went less and less and less. I thought there was pleasure, but it was medicinal, and all it was doing was throwing. That's a whole nother topic. But my anxiety, 30 years of every frickin' technique, whatever, medicines, everything in the world. When I quit drinking, it went away. 30 years I drank at it to try and, because it fixed it at the moment. Couldn't wait. Oh my God, I'm gonna I can't go grocery shopping. I got to drink some beer. We're going to go out to a party. I got to drink before we even go, so that I can. When I quit drinking, it went. That alone is why a reason for my sobriety, and that's by far not the only thing I got out of sobriety.
Yeah, I remember that. I remember drinking before going to like simple errands. Like I remember walking. I remember I would be driving down the street, and I would see people walking around. You know, I lived in this area where there was like shops and stuff that were walkable, and I would think to myself, how are they doing this? Like, do you think they're drunk too? Like, they must be drinking. How are they doing this? How are they going through their life without numbing the edges?
Thank you. Yeah.
You know, I didn't understand.
I was so jealous of them. Even when someone pushing a cart through the grocery store, and just you look at them and go, I think they're relaxed. How the hell? I want to go up to them and just shake their hands and say, you're so lucky.
Yeah.
You have, because I drank 4 beers out in the parking lot just so I could come in to buy more beer or whatever else I had to get.
I remember that. I remember that feeling very well. And I don't, and I don't know. It's funny that you mentioned the gym and the Enneagram, because I wonder, sometimes I wonder, like, is there a phenotype that gets people to like this point? And I think the answer is no. I think the answer is like addiction is addiction, and it can affect any type of person, demographics, gender, everything else. But there is commonality to some of our stories that, this anxiety, because I would never say I was an anxious person. I would never tell you that I never experienced anxiety the way other people tell me their anxiety feels. My anxiety never felt that way. But now I realize that I was anxious, going into social situations. Not that going to the grocery store is social, but I joke around now. The other day, I took a picture of myself going to the grocery store. It must have been the summertime because we were still masking everywhere. But I had a mask on, I had headphones on, and I had a hat on going into the grocery store. And I was like, I like this. Like, I live in a small kind of community. I see a lot of people everywhere I go, and I don't really want to see anyone. I don't want to talk to anyone. But now I can joke around about that. Like, no, I really don't want to chat with the next mom.
I would have asked for your autograph because I would have figured, I don't know who that is, but they've got to be very important if they're hiding like that.
Oh yeah, it felt very, but I had my sunglasses on too.
Yeah, there you go. This has to be someone very famous.
But you know what it was? I think when I used to feel like that, I thought something was wrong with me, right? Like something must be wrong with me that I feel. Now I joke around, like, no, I don't want to see anyone. I don't want to talk to anyone. Let me put all my gear and joke around about it. So I think it's also that, like, recognizing, like, hey, this is who I am. This is, I accept that I'm a little bit of an introvert. People don't believe me that I'm an introvert because I'm very chatty, but I am very introverted. I love alone time. And I used to think that was something to drink at and something to get over versus this is who I am. And, I just need different.
But hearing that you actually experienced the same thing, that I wasn't the only one in the world that felt that way, made me feel so much better. And I didn't know that until I got into some of these groups and started, not trying to do this just myself, but open up to a lot of people that want to help us. Bindi, we're way over. Don't stay on, but I got to wrap up on this. We're going to do, we've done some trauma stuff. We had Rose on, who lost her daughter to an overdose several years ago, and we're really hitting, there's a lot of trauma, a lot of and we're going to talk about ways that we can turn trauma into joy. And I've had Michael McNamara is going to be back on talking about that. I've been learning a lot about finding joy after trauma. And, you hear the big T, little t. So we got some workshops coming up. Bindi, I'm going to bug you now that I have your phone number, because some of the self-care and forgiveness thing, I would love. I think there's some really good group stuff we can do. But anyways, and then this week, I'm horrible if it's Tuesday or Thursday, but I've got a couple. Peggy is going to be on, who her book, This Side of Alcohol, just got released. So the pre-orders are released. So very excited. I try to get one of the first ones ordered because you get the autographed copy and all that, and that's going to be fun. But we're going to have her on this week. Looking forward to that. But Bindi, thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, it was fun.
And if you're looking for anything, check out Pandemic Sober Squad. I'm a part of it when I can. The people there are fantastic. It's just a great people in there. So
yeah.
All right. Well, hang on there, and we will see everyone again Tuesday evening. Have a safe weekend, and I think the word chat is the word for the day. Maybe. I love that group chat thing.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
I think that's huge. All right, everyone, take care and enjoy. I know that everyone's going to be glued to the TV today for the Bearcat Notre Dame game, and so we'll wrap up and see you then. Take care. See ya.
Bye.